So up until now, I've been filming on my phone, and I decided I didn't like that anymore. So I made some changes, and I hope you enjoy. So this looks a little bit different now this time, doesn't it? Now, of course, I have a new camera, and I think this definitely improves the picture just a little bit. And of course, with a new camera, what else am I going to do but buy some more books? Because I don't have a problem. You have a problem. I don't have a problem. You have a problem. Alright, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. If you haven't already, like and subscribe these videos, please. It helps me out a lot. And let's talk about some more books that I bought. This time, though, to be fair, a whole series that I ordered about a month ago finally did arrive, so I'm including it here, even though you might have seen it in my last video for my TBR. Other than that, I did my first ever used bookstore trip. So I went to a place called Second and Charles by my house, and I spent $33 and got a bunch of books. So let's talk about those now. Starting, of course, with The Greatcoats by Sebastian de Castell. So this is part of a book read-along that I'm starting in a couple of days in August, with Traitor's Blade being book number 1. So as I said in my last video, in my TBR, this is basically what is being marketed as Joe Abercrombie meets the Three Musketeers. So I am assuming a lot of violence, a lot of humor, a lot of crazy fun characters to follow on their silly antics. Like I said in that video, I have read a couple of chapters of this just to get a feel for the story and the characters that you follow. There is indeed violence. There is indeed humor. So far, so good. I'm really looking forward to these. The first book's significantly shorter than the rest of them, so I'm expecting only a couple of days to burn through Traitor's Blade because it reads really easily. The pacing seems on point, and it's just a fun read. So I think mixing that into my August TBR was a perfect time to read that book, because I am also starting Stormlight Archive, and A Way of Kings is massive. So this should be a good one. Nice quick read to get through. But that was the first thing that I wanted to include here, because I did find the entire series. As I said before, I ordered them a month ago. I didn't think they were going to show up, but they did, and now I have them, and I'm excited to read them. Next up, of course, I have a controversial book, to say the least, and that is by Terry Goodkind, which is the first book of the Sword of Truth series, Wizard's First Rule. Do with that what you will. So this series, I have heard from very, very avid fans of the series that it is peak fantasy storytelling, character work. They praise these books, and I've also heard the exact opposite of that, which is, this is Lord of the Rings ripoff garbage. Don't ever read it ever. It's terrible. So naturally, I had to get it. It was a used book. It was $2.50. I'm going to buy it at that price, and I'm going to read it. I don't know when I'm going to read it, but I'm going to read it at some point. Again, this is a very, very long series. I don't know when I'm going to fit it in to my pile of books that I want to read, but I do want to give it an honest shot, because I'm almost kind of drawn to books where it's so one way or the other, or even The Name of the Wind. It's far more liked, I think, than disliked, but even that book I've heard is like, this is the greatest fantasy of the last 2 decades, or this book is so overrated, I don't know why people like it. I'm going to read that at some point. I do own it. I own the first 2 books, but we'll get into that another time. He's probably never going to finish them, whatever. Next up, we have my first guy Gavriel K novel, say that 5 times fast, and that is Under Heaven. So this is a Chinese-based fantasy/historical fiction blend, as I understand it. I wanted to get into more similar to the Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, Asian settings. I didn't want to just keep reading the same kind of high fantasy medieval settings that we always see in fantasy. So this one really caught my eye. The cover art was beautiful, and again, used bookstore, I'm just kind of grabbing things that pique my interests. It looked cool. And I know he wrote Tagana, which I have not read, but it is on my TBR. I want to get to that eventually, but I figured, why not? I'll give this one a shot, and we'll see how that one goes. Okay, and the next book I picked up feels like it's going to be totally different than anything that I'm used to reading, because if I'm understanding this correctly, it's from the perspective of a dragon. So this is Dragon Champion by E.E. Knight. Um, you got me beat. I love dragons and fantasy. It's probably my favorite fantasy style like character or creature that I've ever known about. Dragons are just super cool, and I've never seen something written from the perspective of a dragon. I could be totally wrong about that. I think that's what I meant to infer from this. I think his name is Oren. I'm pretty sure it's a dragon. So that's I got nothing. I don't know what to expect, but it sounds really cool, and I am interested in reading that because that just sounds so different. And next up is the only sci-fi book that I managed to find at this bookstore while I was there, and that is The Martian by Andy Weir. Now, what I know about The Martian is really just from the Matt Damon movie, which is actually a really good movie in my opinion. So I assume the story is relatively the same, at least some beats to it. I'm sure there's differences in the books and the movies, there always are. But essentially, this astronaut gets stuck on Mars, a windstorm comes through, basically tears apart his ship, and he's marooned there and has to figure out a way to survive, similar in like a Castaway-ish setup, but on Mars. So obviously complete, alien planet. The atmosphere is different. Things are not going to grow as well. You're going to have to really try very hard to survive this scenario. So like I said, I know the movie. I assume the book is similar, but the books are almost always better than the movies for a lot of these things. So I'm really interested in reading that, and I will be getting to that somewhat quickly because, like I said in my TBR video, I'm going to try to mix in at least one sci-fi book every month because I really want to expand beyond just fantasy. So I'm reading about a dragon and a Martian. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I have a lot of sci-fi lined up that I want to get to, that I want to mix in between all these fantasy books that I'm reading, and I'm definitely going to get to this one probably September, October, maybe. We'll see. And finally, to make up the mistake of buying the first two books of Fall of Shannara, which are roughly 20 books into the series, I found Sword of Shannara, and it's the original trilogy, actually in a full 25th anniversary hardcover. So I thought this was awesome. I had been looking for just the first book because I wanted to give it a shot, and I found this, and I just didn't want to pass this up because it seemed really cool. So, jokingly, everybody, well, maybe not jokingly, everything that I hear about this, and everybody tells me that this is basically a Lord of the Rings ripoff. I haven't read the Lord of the Rings in many, many years, and I kind of want to read it for myself and see how much of a ripoff it is, because I know The Eye of the World was compared to Lord of the Rings a lot, and people say it's basically the Fellowship of the Ring. There's definitely parallels, but I felt like that was largely overblown. I've heard a lot of things about Wizard's First Rule being a straight Lord of the Rings ripoff down to certain characters and character beats. I feel like that's probably relatively overblown. So I'm interested in reading Wizard's First Rule kind of for that as well. And then Sword of Shannara for basically the same reason. Even if it is a ripoff, this series is 20-some books long at this point. I mean, this guy's been writing this series for 30 years. I think he started in the 70s, so that's almost 50 years. I don't even know. I should look that up. I know it's been going for a long time, and I know he essentially piggybacked off of Tolkien's success with The Lord of the Rings, down to there is a Dark Lord, there is a magical item, it's not a ring, it's a sword, there is basically elves, hobbits, dwarves, a ranger, a powerful wizard. Like, it definitely sounds like it is pulling a lot from The Lord of the Rings, but honestly, that's okay. I mean, I can't imagine it stays that way forever because this is so many books long, and if it's good enough, whatever, I'll enjoy it. I'm not that picky, to be honest. If it's a good story and it's told well and the characters are cool, I'm going to enjoy the book, even if it's a ripoff of Lord of the Rings. Okay, so that is going to do it for this book haul. I promise I am not going to do these every 5 days or whatever I'm doing them seemingly at this rate, because I had a fantasy and sci-fi book haul, and then this one as well, because every week or so I'm like, I feel like I want to go buy some books. And then I usually buy some books. So I figured I might as well do a book haul for these. Like I said, this is my first time actually going to a used bookstore, which I highly recommend. You can find some seriously deep discounts and pretty good condition books. And I trust that more than ordering a used copy online, just because I have my own issues with that. But that is going to do it for this used book haul. As far as future plans for the rest of July, I am finishing up Grey Sister finally, now that my misprinted copy was replaced by Book Depository, where there were about 3 chapters of the middle of the book that just were chapters 13 to 16 over again, which is interesting. And I'm finishing up Fires of Heaven as well, so there should be the last 2 books that I finish in the month of July before I step into my August TBR, which I'm going to try my absolute hardest to stick to. The only thing that will prevent that from happening is we are having a son in 3 weeks, so that will be 2 kids running around the house. I will be off of work, but I will be busy raising children, so we'll see how that goes. But until next time, everybody, keep reading.